transfers to our state universities in information skills for the digital age. And to pull everything together would have been the need to use like 3 textbooks, and we knew that we didn't want to do that. So what we did was we started calling proprietary sources via the library through journal, magazine, periodical, and also open web resources to provide the content for our students. And then during that same semester, we had the students call and curate some of their own information to share with each other. So that's kind of how our own experiment started in what we like to call one-click digital. For example, students don't really care where it comes from as long as they can click on it and access it. Okay.
Yeah. So, did you mention one-click digital?
I just said it.
Yeah. So, because of our technology snafu, the computer is holding us hostage right now to Scottsdale Community College, which is where I work, because we made the grave error of shutting it down. So, all our slides are sort of locked up behind that. So the background, so Candice gave you the background. We developed a 3-credit course, and because we are librarians, it's very natural for us to search and find information. And of course, we are very aware of the, now I'm talking in an academic environment, right? So we are employed by a community college. So what the case study that we're talking about would work in our type of setting. You want me to move?
I will.
Go here?
Yeah.
Am I good? Okay. So, of course, we're very aware of the millions of dollars, maybe it's not quite that much, that our college and district spends on proprietary databases, right? That have the gajillions of newspaper, magazine, journal articles. Increasingly ebooks, streamed video, multi-images, maps, all sorts of content that we pay for. However, back in 2008, our ears started tingling with this whole open access movement, and we became aware that increasingly, as probably a lot of you know, universities, professors, all sorts of people are growing a body of open scholarship freely available on the web. Now, the amount of that doesn't necessarily compare to how much we still have locked up behind proprietary databases, but it's growing, it's the future. So when we were charged with developing this online course, our intention was to bypass any sort of a textbook and create and cull from both the library databases and the open sources content that would be rich and educational for our students. And that's what we did. And we sort of call this one-click digital, where you blend from both open and proprietary. And this is relevant for anybody who is working in an academic environment. It was successful, and we started to do a little bit more with OER on our campus. There was a little bit of a buzz going on. So the business division came running to us. I'm acting out because we don't have slides. They were running to us. And they're like, we've got a grant to do, it was dual enrollment for high school students who are going to go to college early and da-da-da-da-da. Well, we thought we had a grant, but they took the money. We don't have enough money to pay for the textbook. Can you help us develop a free textbook? And at first we're like, well, that sounds cool, but because this was like in May that they came to us and they needed it in June. And for anybody who has tried to curate original content, create and curate, even a lesson plan, right? I mean, it can be hours. So we were a little bit like, oh, I don't think that's possible. And it turns out it wasn't possible. But the thing it did was it introduced us to Professor Reyes Medrano. And he liked the conversations we were having, and he said, you know what, it's not going to work for summer, for this dual enrollment. However, I've got an international business class, and after 30 years, I just spit, I hope I didn't catch on that. After 30 years, in the sunset of my career, and he's a beloved instructor, I'm ready to throw it all away and jump in with you two crazy librarians to abandon my textbook and see what we can do. So we thought, cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna interrupt you for just a second.
Interrupt me. I'm trying to act it out. It's not easy.
Part of it was because when we talked to the class at the end of the semester, this statement. Okay, I want my YouTube now. Oh, good. Yes, I have these. This statement. Yes.
$80. Okay. Did you miss it this semester? To be honest, I mean, did you miss the textbook? Never opened a textbook in my life. Wait. I gotta hear that again. What did you say? I think that again. I've never opened a textbook in my life. Oh my goodness.
So that's one thing Professor Medrano had found as an instructor was the fact that his students weren't opening the textbook. He was having to synthesize the textbook and then, tell it to them when they came into the class. So how could we not only save them money, which was the big kicker, but get them more engaged? So when we came back in the fall, did you get to that point?
I was just going to do that.
Okay, so when we came back in the fall, because we had this great idea that we'll create an open access textbook, we thought to ourselves, how are we going to do this? Because there's just not enough time. He was in the sunset of his career. Could he really find the stamina to create with us all the pieces of an open textbook? And since we had had success in our IFS course with students doing some of the curation, we said, well, how about letting them create the textbook, which he then named a living textbook. Because IBS 101, International Business, changes all the time. So every semester they would do research and find new information and create for each other and teach each other from this open textbook.
So that's really where what's been called the Medrano Project. And it is an award-winning project. We've delivered the workshop or the presentation at several conferences nationally. Usually we have about an hour, so we would immediately engage you in an activity. But this is what we did. So once we landed on that sort of light bulb moment, we don't have to do it all. When these students are empowered with information literacy research skills, critical research skills to find, evaluate, and ethically use information, they can do that curation for themselves. And guess what? It saves them money and it uberly increases their engagement. So I'm going to briefly tell you what the OER as pedagogy cycle looked like for this particular class. And we did it for a couple of semesters. We decided from the first day of class, and it was a face-to-face class, we were going to disrupt any notions of a traditional classroom where you usually start off by going over the syllabus, and this is the book, and this is that. So around the room we have up pages, and these represent in our world sort of chapter headings. And we had physical pieces of information passed around. The students had to analyze the information they had and identify what we say in library world and other places, keywords. They had to then find their group of folks that had a similar topic based on the keywords, and physically construct what would be a textbook page. So these are actually kind of examples of what the students did. This gave them sort of a physical introduction.
So I'm going to stop you for just a second. So for example, this might be a class, and the concept would be, okay, look at the source that you have. It could be proprietary, it could be open access, and you'll notice underlined. So for those of you, I just gave you 5 pieces. Do you notice the underlined word? Okay, now find each other and build your page and come up with your own heading based on what you're seeing, because this is what you're physically going to have to do. Right. That also became the cooperative teams within that cycle. You became a cooperative team for the rest of the semester. And we intentionally used sources that were from the library and sources that were open access. So they had this physical experience of crafting a textbook page, and we let them know that this is what they would then be doing virtually for the duration of the semester.
So the next couple of weeks, we did spend some intense time actually instructing students in all things information literacy, which is what we do a lot as instruction librarians, as well as open up the world about information and ownership. What's proprietary? What's open? What does that mean? And we had some research guides available to support them as they were going to start to go out and search for information. But this is what it looked like. So Professor Medrano would deliver his lecture on
a light version.
a light touch lecture. And each group of students was assigned a subtopic within that overall lecture. Like if he was going to do free trade, some group might be the tariffs, some group might be globalization in Latin America, whatever it was. And those students then knew, as they're listening to Professor Medrano, they had to identify keywords and phrases and write those down. So it really promoted active listening to the lecture. There might be a little discourse and discussion. Then the teams were set free to go search, find, evaluate, cull, and curate information. And as a group, and this cycle usually took about 2 weeks, as a group, they would then decide on the information, and in cooperative learning teams, someone would be the editor for that week, someone would be the responder, blah, 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 blah. They would create in a wiki their contribution to this virtual textbook, okay? But it doesn't end there. Then the team would get up and they would peer teach what they learned with Professor Medrano, and we were always in the background as well, acting as the expert responder to fill in any sort of gaps.
Of which there honestly were very few. In fact, if he were standing here, we have a little piece of him at the end, he would say that he learned a couple of things. For example, going into the first semester, he thought markets still closed. Well, markets never close anymore, and he learned that.
We were all learning things in real time.
Yes.
In this particular class, there were actually a lot of students who were international themselves. So they would bring in that other perspective. And it really validates sort of some of the theories within critical pedagogy where you want to validate the cultural and social capital that a student brings to the classroom. And this method, there was true partnership in the learning. We really were learning stuff from those students who were talking about, from like from Russia and all this. So what we realized was, just as we sort of had a hint in our original IFS 101 class that was online, we realized in real time, not only are they saving $120 or more per textbook, their engagement is sort of shooting off the roof. That's not a metaphor. Let's look at it though. Let's look at what engagement is. So that sort of represented a typical working session where the students in groups would be collaborating to find information. And again, we emphasize, use these beautiful databases, but also go out to the open repositories. With the big ones, there's Merlot, DOAJ, but there are a lot of repositories coming out of the big universities that house original scholarship that can be useful to students in an academic setting, in a college setting. So, Candy, that's what engagement looks like. And we were going to show a couple of slides, but I don't think we can. Oh yeah, get the EDUCAUSE article.
So we have some findings.
Yeah, we do have some so we don't have our slideshow. That's totally thrown us off, as you guys can see. However, the good news
So we're
is...
doing really well, aren't we?
The good news is, on November 4th, which was Monday, our article just got published in EDUCAUSE. And it has basically all this information in it, including what we were going to show you in the slides, which was some of the findings, because we did assess we got student feedback based on how they felt about saving money, which was very important to them, and how they felt about this process and their levels of engagement. So, okay, this is the EDUCAUSE article.
Right, so we'll do a couple of the results, and then really we just need to play wrap it up. 100% of students strongly agreed that instructions encourage critical thinking. 95% found content for this course more engaging
Than a traditional textbook.
Right, I mean 62% had previously found textbooks a cost as an academic barrier. It stopped them from continuing their education, and 100% strongly agree that instructors promoted learning that is interactive, hands-on, and pertinent to the class. One student, one student talked about student engagement, and then we'll go the other way, sorry. Find his students in that, no, keep going the other way. Oh, yes, coming together. Yeah, well, this is a good one. I was really wanting to do, you had to be engaged to survive. One student said this statement, you had to be engaged to survive. But this one, just talk about the class coming together would be fine, and then we'll wrap up with Reyes.
Yeah, go ahead and play it.
Yeah, go ahead, thanks.
And we'll do a little next step.
I don't know if these guys are regular, you brought these quickies. You guys gave us all these wonderful search tools that we used before. So I think by the second or third class, I think everything kind of took off. And I think everybody in this class, I think we all kind of gelled because I think there's a little more respect for each other because we know what it's like to get up there and talk every week. So.
Yeah, thank you. Don't you hate it when you've got students and they're all snarky sitting there in the back? It's like, well, you get up here and do this. I'm not necessarily comfortable either. So they're empathy for what it's like to have to stand up and talk in front of people. And we really considered so much of this beyond the course content, the competencies of the course, which they were able to master. And I believe our data showed that retention was a little bit higher than in his traditionally taught classes. But they also gained a lot of ancillary, that's our word, right? Ancillary real-world skills.
21st century.
Working together, research and evaluating information, public presentations, that was just all built into this process. We have a lovely video from Lessig, but I guess we won't play
We can
it.
play it right at the end.
Yeah, let's play it at the end.
Yeah.
So
I want to just briefly though talk about the fact, so over 3 semesters, the Great Distribution was typical of, no it wasn't, the Great Distribution was typical as far as losing students. That had dropped like 2 percentage points, and only 1 student failed over 3 semesters, which was not typical. I mean, he's a popular professor, so they love him anyway, and you'll see that when you start hearing him talk. But, so that was just, it was really positive. He felt so good about the experience, and so this is Professor Reyes Medrano. Professor Medrano, what are your thoughts and reflections on the process from start to finish?
Well, I think the crucial part of the process is that as professors, as teachers, obviously a prime objective is engagement of the student in the classroom. And I've always done okay with that in my classes, my traditional classes. But this process allows that to flow, that engagement to happen in a very natural format. Students are naturally engaged. There's no choice. The idea that they are the ones who research the material, they're the ones who actually bring the material into the classroom, into the lecture, and they form the foundation of the lecture. So they are immediately engaged, and they don't go back to a textbook to try and find answers. They actually find the answers before we begin to talk about it in class. So the engagement is just very easy, and it's all encompassing. Nobody gets left out. They're all involved. And I think that process is what we all look for as teachers, as professors. We all look to have student engagement. And this is just the best format I've ever had. In fact, I really have felt a little bit of a twinge of guilt how I've been doing things, how I had been doing things for the past 25 years. Unfortunately, this came pretty late in my career, but it's just really motivating for me as a teacher.
Thank you.
So, as we really and we were talking about meta design with that, I almost call this whole process, including our videos, naked design, because we just had to dress it kind of as we went along. You know?
Yes, it's true. So I think I'm gonna, just to quickly wrap up, please, because we don't have much time. So I think what this experience, it builds on our prior experience when we taught online, and what it taught us, what we learned was, number one, OER has tremendous potential to save money, but it also has tremendous potential to tap into new pedagogies that empower students truly as partners. As Lawrence Lessig says, maybe we'll show it, you know, this is the digital creativity that our students are living in every day. So let's harness that and use it to engage them as learners. As librarians, we bring a certain lens to OER. We certainly don't want to leave behind the wonderful things that we pay for, the databases, but OER provides a wonderful opportunity to sort of leverage into those databases and blend them. It was a little bit technologically clunky because we had to rely on easy proxy and permalinks, and all of that is really annoying to faculty and students. However, there's new technology out, and both of our colleges, with help from our IT people, have embedded, we have a product from EBSCOhost, and basically what it allows all of us to do now is, once you're in your learning management system, like we have Canvas, you can search directly from Canvas into the library resources. When you find things that are relevant for your students, you click and say, add it to my reading tool. It creates a reading list that's automatically embedded in Canvas. No more easy proxy, no more permalinks.
And you can annotate that reading list.
And it's, hey guys, read chapter 3 by next week. We're going to have a discussion. You can add URLs so you can blend open access. So that's sort of the next step, because we feel like by eliminating those techno barriers, we can scale up this approach much more quickly. And within the context of, Paul and I are wearing our Maricopa Million shirt, because our district is launching a major initiative to try and save students $5 million in 5 years. And so this might become one of those pieces that really supports faculty in creating fabulous, engaging materials for the students that don't cost them a nickel.
It also breaks down that barrier of it's too hard. It just makes
Yeah.
it so much
Yeah.
easier, and it doesn't have to be a
From
whole
the
textbook.
prior
It can be
lecture.
bits and pieces. And thank you. We're
I
very
think
much
that's
we have
it.
a minute, so we have questions. Yes.
So you just mentioned the thing where you had the library links embedded into Canvas. Does that mean then that, for example, like we use Art Store, and there's a login we have to have through the library, and
Right.
so your login to Canvas as a student doubles up and off you go.
Yes, if it's configured properly, optimally, it's seamless.
Is that built off of one of the apps that you
It's a
add in?
web scale tool called Discovery.
Well,
That technology belongs to a web scale tool
Yeah.
for library management systems called Discovery.
It's
that we're
essentially,
Discovery.
I don't know if you're familiar with like EBSCOhost, they're a big provider of databases.
Yep.
And they also provide, now the latest technology in libraries is sort of called web scale tools. And not all libraries have them yet. We're fortunate we do. And what they allow for is a meta search across most of the content that a library subscribes to. So it's like a plug-in to that, and it's free as long as you're subscribing to that. And then, yeah, it allows for that seamless interoperability between Canvas or Moodle or Blackboard or whatever you got, and the rich repository of library sources. But you can also add the URL, so you can add something from Merlot or something from Coursera or whatever.
Okay, one more question. Yes.
So I wonder how hard it is to pre-select materials that students will work on, or did you spend no time on that?
We had a LibGuide,
A research guide.
a research guide.
So
that-
one
So
thing we
students are on their own to find interesting and relevant
Yes.
materials that they were assigned to?
Yeah, now we
For
did,
their large topic.
Right.
now we did have access to their wiki pages, so part of our role, we were embedded, and we would provide feedback along with Professor Medrano, and also they would come and see us. So they were sort of learning research skills and all the information that's out there, but really they were empowered to find that information, using their own
And
knowledge.
they held each other to a really high level. I mean, you would think, well, how was it not just a bunch of junk? But it just wasn't.
they were, and as Sheila said, because we were in the wikis, we'd say, listen, you gotta dig a little deeper here, come on.
Yeah,
So-
if there was like a piece of information that was really not, the credibility wasn't good, we'd call them out on it. And they'd call each other out, they would.
All right, thank you so very much.
We'd like to encourage you, if you want to further converse with our presenters, to connect with them afterwards, because we've got like a 5-minute turnover time here.